Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes in life, we become experts in one very destructive habit: overanalyzing the problem. We replay it, we rethink it, we magnify it until it becomes so big, so overwhelming, that we freeze. Our minds keep shouting, "Why did this happen to me? Why now? Why always me?" But not once do we pause and ask, "Now what?" The world is full of people who talk about problems. They gather in circles and trade stories like broken records, but few have the courage to be different. To be that one person who stands in the storm and says, "Yes, this is hard, but what can I do about it?" That person isn't lucky or special. That person made a choice to focus on solutions, not problems. Solutions begin when you shift your inner dialogue from "why me" to "what now?" This one sentence can change the direction of your entire life, because "why me" is a question rooted in pain, in confusion, in self-pity. It keeps your energy stuck in a place where nothing moves. But "what now" opens a door. It invites movement. It whispers that maybe, just maybe, you are not finished yet. Let us be honest, "why me" comes naturally. It is our brain's way of trying to make sense of unfairness, betrayal, failure. When something hits us unexpectedly, our first instinct is to search for someone or something to blame. We want answers, we want justice, we want the pain to make sense, and when it does not, we sit in silence and repeat the question louder, hoping the universe replies. But it does not, because the universe is not here to explain. It is here to evolve, to grow you, to challenge you into becoming who you were meant to be. And that version of you cannot be born in comfort. It is born in chaos and carved through choice. The moment you stop asking "why me" and start whispering "what now," something shifts. The energy inside you begins to look forward, not back. You start seeing options instead of obstacles. What now does not require you to have the full solution. It simply pulls you into the first step. Maybe it is making that one call you have been avoiding. Maybe it is writing down your thoughts so they stop screaming in your head. Maybe it is just getting up, showering, and reminding yourself that you are still here, still breathing, still capable. This shift in dialogue rewires your brain, because now, instead of being a victim of your situation, you are becoming an architect of your response. And architects build. They do not blame the weather when a crack appears. They look at the damage and redesign stronger foundations. Life will always throw things at you that feel bigger than you. It does not mean you are weak. It means you are human. But your power lies in remembering that your mind is not just a place where problems live. It is a place where solutions are born. And they are born when you start talking to yourself differently. The next time something collapses in your life, a relationship, a dream, a plan, listen to your first thoughts. If it is "why me," it is okay. Let it come, let it cry, let it scream, but do not let it stay. Invite "what now" to the conversation. Write it on your mirror, say it out loud in the car, whisper it before you sleep, make it a habit. Over time, you will notice a difference. Not because your life becomes perfect, but because you stop waiting for perfect to begin again. You begin again anyway. And that is the difference between people who break and people who build. So the real question is not what happened to you. It is not even why it happened to you. The real question, the one that holds your future inside it, is "what now?" A problem magnified in the mind grows. A solution applied shrinks it in reality. That is how our thoughts work. They do not just reflect reality, they distort it. The more we think about a problem, the bigger it feels. It grows arms, legs, shadows. It multiplies in size, in weight, in urgency. Suddenly, what was a small inconvenience becomes a monster we do not know how to fight. The problem itself has not changed, but our relationship to it has. Because our minds, when left unchecked, are brilliant at turning a crack into a canyon. When we replay the problem over and over in our head, we are feeding it. We give it power, we give it voice, We let it take over conversations, moods, sleep. We walk around with it sitting on our shoulders, whispering fear and frustration in our ears. And the worst part, most of the time, the problem does not need that much attention. It needs action. One step, one decision, one brave attempt at doing something, instead of just thinking about it. There is a reason we feel exhausted when we overthink. Because our brain was not designed to be a storage unit for endless loops of worry. It was designed to solve, to move, to try. The moment we take that first step, however small, we begin to break the loop. The problem stops being this undefined, shapeless fear and becomes something we can interact with. Something we can touch, understand, fix. You do not need to know the full solution. You do not need to have it all figured out. But when you take even the tiniest action, the weight of the problem begins to lift, because now your brain is no longer trapped in the fog. It can see a little clearer, your heart can breathe a little easier, and even if the result is not perfect, you have changed something far more important, your direction. There is a kind of peace that only comes from motion, not from having all the answers, but from refusing to sit still in the middle of confusion. When you magnify the problem, it paralyzes you. When you apply a solution, any solution, it gives you momentum. It is like pushing open a heavy door. The first push is hard, but once it starts to move, the weight feels lighter. And so do you. Sometimes we do not act because we are afraid of choosing the wrong solution. But a wrong solution still teaches you more than sitting in the problem ever will. It shows you where not to go. It shows you what to try next. It gives you data, clarity, courage. The only thing worse than a wrong step is no step at all. Because when you stay stuck, the problem does not just stay, it grows. This is not about pretending problems are small. Some are huge, some are heartbreaking, some shake you to your core, but even the biggest problems need you to face them one piece at a time. Not in your head, but in the world, not in circles of thought, but in forward motion. You do not need to carry the whole weight of the issue at once. Just find one corner of it to work on, one piece to patch, one loose end to tie. That is how you shrink it. Not by wishing it away, not by analyzing it to death, but by doing something about it, however small. Every setback holds a seed of opportunity if you are willing to water it with courage. Most people run from setbacks because they feel like failure. They feel like proof that you were not good enough, not smart enough, not lucky enough. But if you take a deeper breath and a longer look, you begin to see something else. You see a hidden opening, a small door in the wall you were not expecting, and that door leads to growth, to lessons, to strength, but only if you are brave enough to step toward it instead of away from it. Courage is not loud. It is not about shouting your plans or acting fearless. Courage is the quiet decision to try again when nothing around you looks promising. It is the moment when you choose not to let a failed attempt define your entire worth. It is the voice inside you that whispers, "This is not how my story ends." Every time you face a setback, that voice is there. The problem is, most of us are too busy listening to the noise of fear to hear it. There are two kinds of people in this world when something goes wrong. One says, "This proves I should stop." The other says, "This proves I need to find another way." The second type does not have more talent. They have more willingness to look at failure and see feedback, to see redirection instead of rejection. They understand that just because a door closed, it does not mean the house is empty. Sometimes you just need to walk around to the side and find another entrance. Setbacks hurt. They can make you feel exposed, embarrassed, lost. But they also give you data. They show you what does not work, which is the first step toward finding what does. If you had never stumbled, you would never have adjusted. If you had never lost, you would never have trained harder. If that friendship had not ended, you would not have learned what loyalty looks like. It is uncomfortable, yes, but it is necessary. Growth does not come from perfect runs. It comes from scraped knees and second tries. To find the opportunity in a setback, you must be willing to ask different questions. Not just, why did this happen, but what is this trying to teach me? What can I take with me from this experience? Those questions are where transformation begins. You start to see the event not as a punishment, but as preparation. Something was being built in you. Something tougher, wiser, more aware. That shift in perspective changes everything. It does not erase the pain, but it gives the pain purpose. It takes courage to believe in second chances, especially when the world tells you that first impressions are everything, or that if you mess up, you are done. But courage is not about doing everything right the first time. It is about showing up the second, third, or 10th time with your head held high and your heart still open. It is about refusing to let your past define your potential. When you look back at your life, you will realize the strongest parts of you were shaped in the hardest chapters. Not when everything was easy, but when everything fell apart and you still chose to rebuild. That is where self-trust is born. That is where resilience becomes your second skin. You begin to realize that no matter what life throws your way, you have the tools to adapt, to learn, to rise. There is opportunity hiding in every experience that hurt you, not because the pain was good, but because what you do with that pain can be. If you choose to water the seed buried inside that setback with courage, with consistency, with self-respect, it will grow into something powerful. It will become part of your story, not the end of it. A problem magnified in the mind grows, a solution applied shrinks it in reality. That is how our thoughts work. They do not just reflect reality, they distort it. The more we think about a problem, the bigger it feels. It grows arms, legs, shadows. It multiplies in size, in weight, in urgency. Suddenly, what was a small inconvenience becomes a monster we do not know how to fight. The problem itself has not changed, but our relationship to it has. Because our minds, when left unchecked, are brilliant at turning a crack into a canyon. When we replay the problem over and over in our head, we are feeding it. We give it power, we give it voice, we let it take over conversations, moods, sleep. We walk around with it sitting on our shoulders, whispering fear and frustration in our ears. And the worst part, most of the time, the problem does not need that much attention. It needs action. One step, one decision, one brave attempt at doing something instead of just thinking about it. There is a reason we feel exhausted when we overthink. Because our brain was not designed to be a storage unit for endless loops of worry. It was designed to solve, to move, to try. The moment we take that first step, however small, we begin to break the loop. The problem stops being this undefined, shapeless fear and becomes something we can interact with. Something we can touch, understand, fix. You do not need to know the full solution. You do not need to have it all figured out. But when you take even the tiniest action, the weight of the problem begins to lift, because now your brain is no longer trapped in the fog. It can see a little clearer, your heart can breathe a little easier, and even if the result is not perfect, you have changed something far more important, your direction. There is a kind of peace that only comes from motion, not from having all the answers, but from refusing to sit still in the middle of confusion. When you magnify the problem, it paralyzes you. When you apply a solution, any solution, it gives you momentum. It is like pushing open a heavy door. The first push is hard, but once it starts to move, the weight feels lighter. And so do you. Sometimes we do not act because we are afraid of choosing the wrong solution. But a wrong solution still teaches you more than sitting in the problem ever will. It shows you where not to go. It shows you what to try next. It gives you data, clarity, courage. The only thing worse than a wrong step is no step at all. Because when you stay stuck, the problem does not just stay, it grows. This is not about pretending problems are small. Some are huge, some are heartbreaking, some shake you to your core, but even the biggest problems need you to face them one piece at a time. Not in your head, but in the world. Not in circles of thought, but in forward motion. You do not need to carry the whole weight of the issue at once. Just find one corner of it to work on, one piece to patch, one loose end to tie. That is how you shrink it. Not by wishing it away, not by analyzing it to death, but by doing something about it, however small. Complaining exhausts you, action energizes you. It feels harmless at first, like a release valve for stress. You talk about how unfair life is, how tired you are, how nothing seems to go your way. And in the moment, it gives you a little comfort, like sitting in a warm bath of self-pity. But soon that water gets cold, and now you are still in the same place with the same problem, only more drained than before. Because complaining is not a solution, it is a stall, a delay. It tricks you into thinking you are doing something about the problem, when really, you are just rehearsing it out loud. Every minute you spend complaining is a minute you could have spent creating change. That does not mean you should never express frustration. It means you express it once, acknowledge it, and then shift into motion, because motion changes things. Motion builds momentum. Even the smallest action toward a solution sends a signal to your brain, we are not stuck anymore. We are moving, and that signal creates energy. It lights something up inside you. Suddenly, you are not just reacting to life, you are participating in it. People do not burn out because they are working hard. They burn out because they are stuck in cycles where nothing changes. Repeating the same complaints every day becomes a heavy weight. It turns your thoughts into loops, your emotions into walls, your goals into someday, maybes. But when you act even imperfectly, you interrupt that loop. You tell your brain, I hear you, but now we are doing something about it. There is a different kind of tired that comes from action. It is not the tired of frustration, it is the tired of progress. A kind of fatigue that feels good because it came from trying, from showing up, from saying yes to the work even when it was hard. That kind of tired gives you pride. The tired from complaining gives you nothing but more noise in your head and more weight in your chest. It is easy to surround yourself with people who also complain. Misery loves company, and venting together feels like bonding. But after the laughter fades and the stories are told, the problems are still there, because shared frustration is not shared growth. If you want to grow, sit with people who ask, what can we do about it? People who say, let us write it down, plan it out, take the first step. Those people leave you feeling lighter, not heavier. They speak in solutions, not circles. Action is not glamorous. Most of the time, it is quiet, repetitive, uncelebrated. It looks like making that call, writing that email, organizing that space, sending that message, showing up again and again. But slowly it builds something, and one day you look back and realize how far you have come, not because you talked about it, but because you did something about it. The hardest part is the beginning. When your body feels heavy, your thoughts are scattered, and your confidence is low. That is when complaining feels most tempting. But if you push past that first resistance and take even one step forward, your energy shifts. Your shoulders relax, your thoughts start to organize themselves, and what felt impossible starts to feel manageable. Not because everything changed, but because you did. Choosing action over complaining is not about being emotionless. It is about being emotionally wise. It is knowing when to feel, when to speak, and when to move. It is understanding that your power does not come from what happened to you, but from how you respond. That shift from venting to doing is where your strength lies. It is not always dramatic, but it is always powerful. Your peace increases as you stop reacting and start responding. Life throws things at you all the time, unexpected comments, difficult people, last-minute problems, sudden disappointments. Most people react instantly. They lash out, break down, defend, withdraw, or panic. Reaction is fast, emotional, and often messy. It comes from the part of us that is trying to protect itself, but peace does not live in reaction. It lives in response. Response is thoughtful. It is quiet strength. It is a pause between the trigger and the choice. When you start responding instead of reacting, something beautiful happens. You reclaim control, not of the world around you, but of your inner world. And that is what actually matters. You begin to realize that just because something upsetting happened, you do not have to be upset all day. Just because someone said something rude, you do not have to let it echo in your mind for hours. You learn to sit with the moment before letting it shape your mood. That pause becomes your power. Reacting is impulsive. It feels urgent, like you have to say something, fix something, prove something right away. But so often, those immediate reactions come from fear, ego, or pain. They feel good in the moment and terrible afterward. You send the angry message, slam the door, raise your voice, and then spend hours regretting it. You lose your peace for the sake of being right or being heard. Responding is slower. It says, let me breathe before I speak. Let me understand before I decide. It does not mean you stay silent forever. It means you choose your words with care. You choose your tone, your timing, your energy, and when you do that, your presence becomes calmer. People feel it. You become someone who does not escalate situations but softens them. Someone who does not mirror chaos but grounds it. Peace is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of clarity even when problems exist. And that clarity grows each time you choose not to match someone else's dysfunction. Each time you decide that your nervous system deserves better than being hijacked by external drama. You realize that not everything needs a reply. Not every situation needs your full emotional investment. Some things can be observed, understood, and let go. The more you respond, the more people trust you. Not because you are always agreeable, but because you are stable. In relationships, in teams, in families, people gravitate toward those who stay steady when things get hard. And steady does not mean emotionless. It means your emotions do not decide your every move. It means you are aware of what you feel without letting it run the show. There will always be people who test your patience, situations that feel unfair, words that sting, but you do not have to hand over your peace like it is up for grabs. You can protect it by choosing not to explode, not to spiral, not to let one bad moment poison the rest of your day. The peace you feel when you respond instead of react is not a reward from the outside world. It is a gift you give yourself. Learning to respond takes practice. It takes catching yourself mid-reaction and deciding to do it differently. It takes letting the silence stretch while your mind clears. It takes humility to say, I do not have to win this argument. I just need to keep my peace, and over time that habit becomes natural. You start to feel when your body is tensing, when your emotions are rising, and you pause. That pause becomes a familiar friend, one that protects your peace like a shield. You begin to feel proud, not for how fast you speak, but for how wisely you choose your words. Focusing on solutions attracts people, resources, and clarity. When you walk into a room carrying the energy of possibility, people notice. They lean in. They want to be around you because most people are tired of negativity, tired of blame, tired of conversations that go in circles. But someone who brings ideas, even small ones, feels like fresh air, not because they know everything, but because they are willing to try something. They are willing to move forward. That mindset is contagious. It inspires collaboration, builds trust, and opens doors. In every environment, work, family, friendships, there are people who drain energy and people who drive it. The ones who focus only on what is wrong tend to attract more confusion, more resistance, more chaos. They create environments where people feel stuck, guarded, or defensive. But the ones who stay calm and ask, what can we do now, They bring light into dark places. They shift conversations from fear to focus. They make others feel seen, heard, and empowered to act. Resources, time, money, help, attention flow toward movement. When you focus on problems, nothing moves. It is like trying to start a car by staring at the engine, but the moment you suggest a way forward, even a rough one, people begin to respond. Someone offers advice, someone steps in to support, someone shares a tool you did not know existed. Because action creates momentum, and momentum attracts opportunity, clarity is a byproduct of motion. Most people wait for clarity before they move, but it often works the other way around. When you take a step toward a possible solution, your brain begins to see more clearly. You start separating what is urgent from what is noise. You stop spiraling in thoughts and begin building something real. That sense of progress sharpens your focus. Suddenly, your priorities become obvious. Your energy becomes organized. You stop reacting emotionally and start planning intelligently. The world respects people who come with solutions. Not perfect ones, not polished ones, but real, thoughtful, hopeful attempts to improve the situation. These people are seen as leaders, not because of their title, but because of their approach. When you bring a solution to the table, even if it is small, you invite others to think, contribute, and co-create. You do not just complain about the darkness, you light a candle and ask, who else wants to help? The more you practice solution-focused thinking, the more your own self-respect grows. You begin to see yourself as capable, creative, and resilient. You no longer feel helpless or bitter. You feel powerful not in an arrogant way, but in a grounded, calm way. You trust yourself more. You feel proud of how you show up. And that inner shift reflects in how others respond to you. Being solution-focused is not about ignoring the problem. It is about refusing to be consumed by it. It is about acknowledging the challenge and choosing to meet it with effort instead of despair. It is knowing that even small progress is better than loud frustration. It is training your mind to ask better questions, like what can I learn here, or how can I help fix this? This mindset does not mean you always succeed. It means you always grow. Every time you reach for a solution, you stretch your thinking. You open yourself up to new ideas, new people, new paths. You stop repeating the same complaints and start writing a different story. And that story becomes the one people want to read, support, and be a part of. Because energy goes where focus flows. And when your focus is on building instead of breaking, life begins to meet you with the tools, people, and clarity you need. Being solution-oriented is not about ignoring pain, it is about moving forward with it. Pain is real. It comes in many forms: loss, rejection, disappointment, fear. It enters your life without permission and often stays longer than welcome. But pretending it does not exist does not make you strong. Denying your feelings does not make you wise. What makes you strong is acknowledging the pain, holding it gently, and still deciding to move, not because it does not hurt, but because you refuse to let the hurt stop your growth. Some people confuse positivity with numbness. They think that if you are focused on solutions, it means you do not feel deeply, that you are ignoring the struggle or rushing the healing. But real strength is in balance. It is being able to say, I am hurting and I am healing. I am struggling and I am searching. I am overwhelmed and I am still trying. This is not about pretending everything is okay. It is about showing up even when it is not. Pain teaches. It opens your eyes to what matters. It humbles you. It breaks things in you that needed to break. Your ego, your false beliefs, your toxic patterns. But pain also builds. It builds compassion. It builds wisdom. It builds your capacity to help others who are still in the place you climbed out of. When you decide to be solution-oriented in the middle of your pain, you are not skipping over it. You are transforming it. You are turning wounds into wisdom, and that wisdom becomes your strength. To move forward with pain does not mean rushing the process. It means refusing to be trapped by it. Some people spend years circling the same emotional pit, not because they cannot get out, but because they have made a home in it. They build stories around their pain and start identifying with it, but you are not your pain. You are the person who experienced it. You are the one who gets to decide what happens next. Being solution-oriented in pain means asking different questions. Instead of why me, you start asking what now. Instead of replaying what was lost, you start discovering what can be found. You start searching for meaning, for lessons, for direction, and even when the answers are not clear, the act of asking shifts your energy. It lifts you from paralysis into motion. It tells your spirit we are not done yet. You learn to carry your pain with grace. You stop expecting life to be painless and start expecting yourself to be resourceful. You start saying things like, "This hurts, but I will figure it out. I do not know how, but I trust I will find a way." That mindset does not remove the pain, but it gives it purpose. It reminds you that you still have choices. You can still move, speak, act, grow. Others begin to notice that about you. Not because you are always smiling, but because you are steady. You become someone who can be in the fire and still think clearly. Someone who does not let pain steal their kindness, their clarity, or their direction. That kind of presence is rare, and it is powerful. It makes people feel safe, inspired, and understood. Moving forward with pain also helps you honor it. You do not bury it. You walk beside it. You let it speak when it needs to, but you do not let it lead. You lead. You become the one who chooses how this chapter ends. And every step you take reminds you that even in sorrow there is strength. Even in brokenness there is beauty. Even in the hardest moments there is still a way forward.